welcome back to this Money edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. We are on the money today with our guests. When we mix it up, we bring on a Democrat, a Republican. We hear both voices. We have thoughtful conversation. We mix it up a bit. But one thing is for sure, at the end, we shake hands, we part friends, and we have a good, considerate discussion. And we stay on the money when we bring in the best of the best, the guests that know where the rubber meets the road. Dr. Judy Kurianski joins us today, and she's a world-renowned author. She's an expert in many things, psychology and the psychology of tantric sex, which your book is about. But what I really want to drill into today, Dr. Judy, to start this segment is what's the mindset? You had two people kind of go off the reservation in a really bad way. How long is something like this fomenting in their brain? And then, you know, I use this pen to joke around, but the left wing is already pointing at this guy as the trigger. Is there a correlation that you could see between the two?
I would say so. As a psychologist, what is really negative, and I think what inflames people to lose control, as many of these shooters have, is exactly the inflammatory conversation that is going on now within our country. People are watching this on TV. You cannot turn television on or radio or anything without hearing hate speech from both parties. So we just heard in your segment before a lot of inflammatory talk and so much about anti-Trump and let's impeach the president. And that really degrades people's trust in what's going on in the world, and they lose their boundaries. Because if we could go after the leaders and watch the debates that just happened in the Democratic Party with all that lineup hating each other and taking shots at Obama and each other, all of this seeps into the mind and consciousness of people who are ready to lose control anyway. And so we always ask in psychology, why now? Why does something happen now? I know we've had Connecticut and we've had London and Spain and many places around the world and California, but there is such a spate right now, I think, as you connect this, because the hate speech in our media has just exploded. And so people take this inside and they lose control.
Dr. Judy, there is no psychologist that's more cited and more accomplished than you, at least not in our area. And I am very curious, you're not going to get an argument from me about the increased polarizing language and the hateful speech from people on every side of the political equation. But these shootings have been going on a while now. They seem to be getting deadlier and deadlier and more frequent and more frequent. So often, the shooters seem to fit a profile. They tend to be young, usually mid to late teens. They tend to be almost overwhelmingly, almost without exception, male, and they're mostly Caucasian. I'm curious, why do you think that's the case? Is there anything about that particular profile that leads them to be increasingly alienated from society?
Well, you use the right word, Frank, as you are so smart in everything.
He's so smart.
He is.
He is so smart.
Alienation is a lot about this, the loneliness. And for a long time, I've been blaming a lot of the internet for this. People are totally disconnected so that no one watches anybody else anyway. They don't pay attention to things because everyone is on this all the time. They don't. I'm very upset because I'm a professor and I've been teaching young people for many, many years, and I see how people are constantly, they can't even put a sentence together because they're constantly doing to's and ats and all these ridiculous things. So that's only one factor about it. The other is the disintegration of the family. Parents don't pay attention. Peers don't really care anymore.
Kids are raised on phones and iPads and Fortnite video games. This is what kids are raised on. They don't even they're almost losing the ability to have human interaction, kids. So I would think that a few things on the internet for one kid that might be slightly unstable could really set them off because they're being raised on this thing now.
Exactly, and I also blame the schools because teachers, not to say that teachers are bad, but they need training in how to notice what's going on with young people when they start, because this doesn't just happen when you're 20 years old. This is something that begins in the beginning of childhood when kids are separated and when they have these odd kind kind of behaviorisms and when they're aggressive towards others. So I think what's important is some advice to parents now, because there are many parents who are frightened about sending their kids to school, for example, because shootings happen at school. They don't want to send their kids to a concert because it happens there. And so I think it's really sad but important to realize, one, that this is the new normal, that this is the way life is, that number two, fear is real. It's okay for you to have it, but don't let it cloud your whole life. Number three, when people are really inflamed to a high degree over these shootings and what's happened, go back into your past and say, when did I feel that I was abused and mistreated and things like that? That's another thing. And then fourth, for your children, not to make sure that they stay at home and to show them how panicked you are, because that just makes the kids panic.
Got it.
Ask them, safety is important. That is really key. So you do have to put some limits on kids' behavior, but ask them, don't say this was a terrible thing that happened. Ask them to tell you
what happened.
Yes. How do you know that?
So let me ask you this.
How do you know that?
In our final minute, because I have 3 kids, but in our final minute, you're also the author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Tantric Sex. And is there a place where when people have anxiety and fear and all this stuff, rather than going off the reservation, they can use your tantric sexual advice to kind of release those anxieties?
John, that's very interesting, because I'm at the United Nations now, and so I advocate about mental health and about the oceans, getting rid of plastic, and about poverty, anti-poverty. So there is a connection between that and even solving world conflict, and that is peacefulness inside yourself. Taking time for yourself to treat yourself well, to relax, to speak well to other people respectfully, to your partners, and to realize that what is solving the problem is not hate, but really love.
We're going to have Dr. Judy on to talk about how tantric sex can solve hunger, pollution, clean the plastic out of the water, and maybe prevent somebody from going off the reservation.
Yes,
thank you, Dr.
and that
Judy.
is true. Thank you.
You're the best. You stay right there. You're the best too. We'll be back right after this.